So this is, 6 years into our work, and we've really started to identify what we think is the big difference in the services that we're providing, and observations that we've made for as cities are trying to solve the sanitation challenge. First is that slum residents are not treated like customers. Second, the focus is on access only, providing someone with a toilet and saying that's enough, rather than the full value chain. And in fact, like the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which ended in 2015, only focused on access. And they've just in the past year with the SDGs, these new Sustainable Development Goals, have moved into talking about the full value chain. And then third, sewers, the solution that everybody thinks of, are simply too expensive and infeasible. So this is an example of what happens when people are not treated like customers, right? These are the products and services that we typically saw when we started in Nairobi's informal settlements. These are both types of pit latrines. People are paying to use these. And so you can see they're not very safe, they're not very hygienic, they're not very attractive. There's no toilet paper, there's no water. Kids are just looking the other way. The second problem is that if you only focus on access, where does the waste go? And if there's no accountability associated with that. And so typically you see this, like waste being collected in what are called ambulances. And they're called ambulances because people get out of the way as these barrels come down the street, right? And you can see, I mean, this isn't a safe process, like the waste is sloshing about. And then where does it go to? And this is unfortunately a scene that you see pretty often. And like this is an open field. Sometimes it's in schoolyards, wherever is closest to where the waste is being collected in the first place. These guys are incentivized to do that, right? Because it just takes up their time otherwise. And if there's no regulation, why bother? And then the third, and this is really the biggest insight and ways that we're moving, is about sewers. The cost to put sewers in to informal settlements, according to the best research out there, is about $56 per person per year. Now, the Kenyan government currently in terms of its water and sanitation spending, is $3 per person per year. And just this past year, they passed the most progressive sanitation policy in probably all of Africa. And in 15 years from now, they're going to be at $12 per person per year. So you have a huge problem where the biggest, most typical solution is completely unaffordable. And there's other problems with sewers too, which is that you need a lot of space, you need a lot of time to get these built. So this is what we do, which I think you all learned. It has not changed. We build toilets, we franchise them to people, we provide the support services so they're able to keep them clean, safe, and open. We collect that waste on a regular basis, usually daily or every other day. And then we convert it into a valuable end product. So predominantly organic fertilizer, but also animal feed too. This is the Fresh Life toilet that I hope you can imagine from your reading of the case study. So this is what it looks like on the outside. It's a bright blue, eye-catching facility, has a nice translucent roof. And then underneath is a cartridge system, so it makes it really simple to be able for the waste to be captured. The user would never see it. As the waste is then collected, it moves through the community and nobody sees it, and it's not exposed to the outside. Makes it a much safer process. This is how we franchise it. We have commercial operators, like this guy here who's running it as a small business, and he makes money. He makes about $1,000 a year in profit by running this as a small business. Residential operators, so landlords are purchasing this for their tenants as a value-add service. This has been a huge growth area for us, which we can talk a little bit more about later, but like it's really where almost all of our effort is going to now, and a lot of that's actually due to some of the work that Sarah did last year for us. And then we also work at community institutions like schools. Sanitation is a 20, 30-year problem. You have to make sure you're working with kids at an early age, make sure they're adopting the right behaviors and having the right expectations of what a safe sanitation experience is, although they probably don't think about it like that way. But, We provide support, and the support ranges from everything from like marketing and branding events like you see here, but also working with the government to secure land access or to provide finance. We work with Kiva, the online micro-lending platform, to be able to provide 0% interest loans to our operators, which is something that was really important in the beginning, in particular, when no one would be willing to finance these. And then we provide hygiene and business training. This is our waste collection work. Our guys, they're from the community, locally hired, know the community inside out for both safety and credibility. It's really important as we build our company that people are actually from the communities that we serve who work for us. They do a safe waste collection. The waste is sealed in cartridges, consolidated, and trucked out. So this compares to that first shot I showed you of the ambulance and the guys, and it's night and day difference. And then we take this waste out now to our waste treatment plant, which has the capacity. This is about a 5-acre site. It's about to be a 15-acre site to be able to serve about the waste of 500,000 people every year, 500,000. At this plant, we first of all take on other waste streams too now. As we've become a solution for cities, we're hearing much more requests from municipalities about, is there a way that we could take on the waste that's not just sanitation waste, right? Could we become like a true utility that's collecting all the other trash too? Which some of it can go into our fertilizer production. This here is the fertilizer production process where we're mixing the waste, initially heating it up to get it to safe levels, and then these are called windrows, and we churn the waste regularly in order to spread out or to make sure that we're heating up all parts of it to make it a safe product. Then this is our lab. We've built a state-of-the-art lab. Berkeley has been hugely helpful in this, actually. There's a professor in the environmental engineering department, Cara Nelson, who has been sending us students for the last few years, and they've just helped professionalize our lab in amazing ways, to the point that like we're better than any of the third-party labs or independent labs within the country. So we test all of our products at our lab, and then we have to send it to another lab to make sure that that we have the government seal of approval. But we actually have to self-regulate ourselves, especially with the type of product that we're producing, which is obviously a waste-derived end product. And then this is this is what happens. So the waste is, this is not photoshopped. And so so these are using our fertilizers. We're seeing crops are increasing yields of at least 30%, as well as farmers seeing fewer weeds, faster growth. So it's like a really valuable product that that farmers are adopting. And at the same time, we're also producing animal feed, which I'm not sure it's in the case study or not, but basically it's over the last couple of years, we've been developing this work where we rear a colony of what are called black soldier flies. And these larvae here, that's sort of weak, but anyway, here, feed on a diet of organic matter. So sanitation waste, ag waste, restaurant waste, market scraps, things like that. They get really fat. We then boil them, dry them, and harvest them, and the end product is 50% protein. We sell this to feed millers who make their specialty feed mixes, which includes everything like soy and things like that. But 10 to 15% of that is like fish, animal-based proteins. So usually it's like fish meal, but this is a highly it's both overfished, and the quality of the fish meal is not very high. So feed millers are really upset about this. And so we have this product that's literally called pure protein that we sell. And so, this is what they're getting, the fish, which has like strings and detritus and sand and shells in it. And then we just sell a very pure product, and feed millers are loving it. So it's been an interesting example of innovation for us. It was not in our original business plan. But we were fortunate to be able to do R&D in support through the Gates Foundation in particular, to be able to do this. And it was an interesting choice to do this because it's actually like a layered on technology. So what we do, so what we're about to do, I should say, is the waste goes through the flies. There's a residue that comes from that, and that goes into the fertilizer production process. And so basically it's enabling us to increase the value per ton of waste that comes in that we can derive from end products. And so it's a really And so often, especially in social enterprise, I find there's like a lot of choices that you can make of ways that you could potentially do things, but there's like very, very clear trade-offs. And we've been able to find a way that you're not actually making that kind of trade-off as we expand our product lines. So we are now at this point where we have about 55,000 users per day of our toilets through a network of about 1,400 toilets. We're collecting about 6,000 tons of waste. This is all within one main slum in Nairobi. It's very, very concentrated what we're doing, very intentional because, one, because saturation is really important in terms of actually having some sort of larger impact. You're trying to get all of the waste out. Our end game is actually to be a solution for cities. And if we can't show to cities that we're able to saturate a whole community, like they're going to be like, well, is this really that great a solution? And so we've been really focused on this. And as you guys build your organizations, there's a significant trade-off, or not trade-off, but there's always a pressure to expand and go say, can you go to lots of other places too? But you have to think about what your end game is for us. And in our case, like if we were to expand really quickly, we would be spread out very thin. Our costs would not be efficient at all because transportation is really a really significant driver of cost. And it would ultimately, we think, would set us up for a difficult situation. In terms of our, this is Sarah. This is Sarah. No, so it is. So in terms of on the agriculture side, we treat all of the waste safely. We're seeing increase of crop yields, as I said, of over 30%. And the chickens and pigs with the animal feed are actually getting 30% larger in contrast to controls. And then economics been a huge impact. So we have 250 direct jobs, people on staff. 65% are from the communities we served. We have over 500 operators of our toilets, and we also have over 900 farmers who we're working with on a regular basis. And now we're at this really interesting inflection point where the World Bank has done this really significant research on us, which is coming out in the next month. And they basically have identified 4 main reasons why they think we're a viable solution for cities. First is that we're much cheaper than sewers. Sewers are coming in at $56 or so per person per year. At scale, they believe that we're 5 to 20 times cheaper. We're already actually 5 times cheaper than sewers, but it's something that they're saying it's 5 to 20 times. And it's one thing if it's us saying that. It's another if it's like some of the best economists in the world saying that, right? And that's like a really important validation for us. Second is the time to scale. They think that we're able to actually achieve our results relatively quickly. You imagine somewhere like Nairobi now, like there hasn't been sewage growth has declined in the last 10 years because cities are growing so fast, and the ability for them to be able to build sewers has taken forever, and they're not actually being built. And so they're saying, well, you guys can actually do this, has been really is really significant, and do it quickly. Third is the design of the toilet. So basically, having a small footprint. When you saw that first picture, is really an appropriate technology for these communities, which are so built up in the first place that you need something that's going to be small and appropriate to fit in those spaces. And then finally, we have the experience. Serving 50,000 plus people is something that is significant. Like other solutions out there who take on similar sanitation challenges are serving basically about 5,000 people at this stage. So we're like working at like 10 times the scale. And it's really important to governments too, as we think about our growth, because they're saying, well, how do we know you can do this? And at this point now, we're actually able to say we're at a size that really starts to matter to them. So this is the future, right? We have 1,000 other cities that are facing the same challenges as Nairobi, and this is just Africa, but obviously this expands to South Asia and Latin America too. And so now the big choices for us are like, how do we actually think about our expansion? Now, once we get to it, if we're at a big enough size that is attractive to municipalities, and there's all these new things we're trying to think about, like what does a supportive regulatory environment look like? Does the government have money to invest in this? If the government doesn't have money, do they know people who have money? Like, is it something like the World Bank or someone like that could actually fund directly through them? And so these are these new big challenges for us as we try to really think about what does scale look like, going really big versus the work right now, which is, we're very proud of. It's good progress, but really it's barely anything versus the larger sanitation challenge.